Hey, welcome back to the permission statement. Around real quick. I was just about to go to bed, but we got court coming up pretty soon. I've been real busy, but I figured I better step back in there with some important stuff. So what I have for y'all today is from the San Diego County Sheriff's Department. I've been alluding that the respondent in this matter that I find myself stuck smack dab in the middle of has one standard for herself and one standard for everybody else. And I'm going to dig deeper in that. And I promised y'all that I'm going to start expanding the scope. I read that email. I'm going to give y'all, if you type in Marvin Lee Mace Jr., Vista, California, a lot of these things are going to pop up. The newspaper article about his arrest with the heroin and the kids and all that stuff. Then there's going to be the incident which says shooting an apartment. That is when he shot himself on accident and she had to call the police, the paramedics to try to save him, and they were both subsequently arrested and charged with the drugs. But this is from the San Diego Sheriff's Department. All right, you see the case number? I'm gonna read it to you. So it says, let's see, where is the camera? It says Jessica Marie Lopez. It's got the case number, San Diego County Sheriff's. It is dated 6/22/2010. It states, statement of Jessica Lopez. So keep in mind, when she was a case manager, she took the stand against an inmate that was supposedly lying. So she took the stand on behalf of the halfway house to say that this individual should be sent back to prison because he was lying, saying that he did something that he didn't, that she had told him otherwise. And at the very same time, she was lying straight to their faces whilst having this sexual relationship with somebody on her caseload, Marvin Lee Mace. Now, he showed up on May the 5th and lied to the court, or tried to lie, and say that they didn't hook up until after he got out of there. Marvin, I've read the letters about the sex you guys were having. You said, we're having sex. Remember when we had sex at your apartment? You were doing the striptease for me on J Street. I got rug burns on my knees. I've seen the porno videos and the arrest record, and her resume don't line up with those facts. The two arrests for the DUIs, those were both in Vista. And those were dates where she was still employed at the halfway house according to her own resume. So she was okay with sending this guy back to prison for lying while she was lying to their face while she was having this relationship with this guy that she was supposed to be keeping from committing these crimes. And she was tasked with protecting the public from this dangerous criminal who was selling heroin and meth with children with them to undercover DEA agents, right? He goes to prison, does his time. He's out on supervised release at this place in their custody. She's a contractor. It's actually a crime to do that. If you're contracted by the BOP or anybody and you're having sex with the inmate, it's actually a crime. So if she was discovered, there would have been an investigation and she would have been fired. We'll be interviewing that specific halfway house about that information. Perhaps that specific case. But you can hear it from them that no, it's very frowned upon to be fucking one of the inmates. You're not supposed to be doing that. But so, like I said, one standard for her, another standard for other people. And so when she went up there, got the first DUI, she let them know. She was honest about it. Didn't tell them she was screwing one of the inmates. Then she gets a second DUI as a result of an argument that they had. So she quits, goes into the drug trade with him, walking down into Mexico and stuffing her hoo-ha with heroin, walking it back into America and slanging it, making the money, living high on the hog. One day he accidentally shoots himself trying to show off a gun, Cheddar Bob. And so, she has to call the paramedics. Paramedics come, police come because there's a shooting. They get both arrested. Now, there was other individuals that were party to this. And when she got locked up and he got locked up, they went through her stuff. They went buck wild with her credit, with her identity, everything, you name it. They just went to town, writing fake checks, racked up her her credit card account balances and everything, and so she got notification from while she was in custody somehow. That information is here as well. So she reached out to the sheriffs and she said, I want those people arrested. I want them charged. So here it is. Statement of Jessica Lopez. Like I said, now that's just to give you an indication of the mindset of this individual. So they were all out committing crimes together. And then she gets arrested. He gets arrested. He's got to go do some serious time. She gets a little slap on the wrist. But she wants these people to be held accountable for them doing her wrong after they were doing all this shit together. Selling heroin and meth to people. Now, have you ever seen people that are on heroin and meth? It's slavery. They're not doing well. It's a very corrosive drug, and she wanted to make sure that these people were held accountable. And it took years for us to clear this up. But when we were going to go buy a home, I had to take some of my college money to call the people and negotiate with them and then file a lawsuit, and was able to get this rectified. The DUIs had to pay tons of money. Imagine 2 DUIs in less than a year, how expensive our insurance was. 2 DUIs. So that had resonated into our relationship. Like I said, when I met her, she was homeless, living at her mom's house. Now, some people are like, oh, you're not homeless if you live at your mom's. Yes, unless you have your own place, you are considered homeless. So you're sleeping on somebody's couch or whatever, just because there's a roof over your head, you're still homeless. So I had benefits afforded to me by Sonoma County as a veteran, and I was living in Sonoma County in Boyes Hot Springs. She couldn't leave because she was trying to get her son back from what she had done and the outcome of that. So she couldn't leave. But I was really fond of her. And so I uprooted myself from Boyes Hot Springs and moved to San Diego and started dealing with all the chaos and the pandemonium of this family. And as I hope y'all are listening, the crazy shit that I've had to deal with this family, it's way outside of what anybody should have to tolerate or deal with, without somebody just saying, hey, you know what, you guys are toxic, get your shit together. If you do or you don't, then you can come back within the realm of my family. But until then, but she won't do that. She always has to put on the cape, fly over there, no matter what it costs us. And one standard for her, one standard for another else. Ostracize my family, but no. We got to put up with all the other stuff. The drug dealers and users taking over her mother's house, and the brother doing all the stupid stuff on the phone that was in her name, and all this. Just, man, the hits just didn't stop. So, one standard for her, another standard for everybody else. And I'm going to start reading some of the literature and everything, and then showing the supporting documentation. But listen to this. Statement of Jessica Lopez. Lopez told me that she had been arrested on 040210, case number 100-26698. On 6/14/10, Lopez was released from jail. Lopez went to retrieve her vehicle from her boyfriend's mother's residence in Vista. That's Marvin Mace. Lopez began rummaging through the vehicle and discovered a check with the name Susan Hines. Lopez noticed that the check had her account printed on the bottom. Lopez said she lived with Hines in an apartment in Vista, but never gave Hines permission to use her bank account number. So that lady, Susan Hines, is the one who jacked her and did all this crazy stuff. And they went to town with her stuff. Lopez checked the mail and also discovered that she owed over $4,000 to her credit card company. Lopez also received a letter from her bank thanking her for opening a new account with them. Lopez then discovered that her checking account had been overdrawn $1,800. Lopez said all the transaction occurred when she was in jail. Lopez did not give anyone permission to use her credit card number, debit card, or social security number. Lopez desires prosecution in this case. Investigation continued. After speaking with Lopez, I provided her with the business card and the case number referencing this case. While on scene, Lopez provided me with a letter from the bank thanking her for opening a new account, a letter from the bank stating that she was overdrawn her account, a letter stating the bank detected possible fraudulent charges. Lopez also provided me with a check with her name and the account number, and a check with Hines' name and Lopez's account number. Upon returning to the Vista station, I placed the documents into the Vista station evidence locker room. Lopez desires prosecution in this case. Bam. So that's Astorga Michael, Vista Patrol, Detective assigned Barone Margaret. Report date 6/22/2010. So you can see that she had no problem, despite going doing all this crazy stuff. She wanted to make sure that these people were prosecuted for what they did and that they get punished by the full extent of the law. Well, she gets a little slap on the wrist, right? And this is what I've had to deal with for quite some time. This is and so when I went to Sonoma County, when I went to Alexis Vossmeyer, and then she went to the director, and eventually end up in front of Christine Briseno. I mean, what? Gosh, did I go to Christine Briseno first? But when I went to Christine Briseno, she was the one who gave me the information, actually. Yeah, so I went to Christine Briseno first. And then called the other people and anonymously, blocked my phone number, the whole thing. Never gave my name, never said my wife's name, none of that shit. I was just like, hey, does this sound normal? Like, does this sound crazy? Am I tripping? Am I overthinking it? Because that's what I'm always told. Oh, no, you're overthinking it. You don't know because you're not a social worker and all this other shit. So I was like, okay, well, let me go talk to some people who are social workers and see what they say. Then I'm told, oh, well, you're not explaining it right. Well, come on in and explain it, And that's why the pictures and the videos are so relevant. But yet, Gregory C. Winter in the courtroom says, who does that? Who records? Instead of saying, who does that? Who gets drunk and pisses on himself in front of their child out in public and humiliates their husband repeatedly at football games in other states in front of the opposing, the opposing team's fans and all that stuff? Because they're already looking at you like, screw your team. But then they're like, oh, man, look at this Charger fan over here pissing all over herself, man. And, that's not cool to do that to your spouse, right? You go to Arizona and do it there twice, and then like it's in the Oxbow and all that. Instead of them saying, "Oh man, what wife does that, man?" in front of her child, in front of her husband, out in public, in front of her child. No, they're like, "Oh, what kind of a husband?" That's what he said. I'm like, well, the one that's dealing with a blackout drunk narcissist that will then deny that they ever did this stuff. So you have to show them. Thank goodness I did, because you got to have something, especially when you're trying to ask people to like help, or hold accountable people that hold these positions or titles. Now, if she wasn't a social worker and just a regular person, and I'm just a regular person, I probably went and done that. Something maybe probably would have happened. But they treat their own differently. And that's what really bugs the shit out of me, because that's not really proper. That a parent has to scorch their family to try to get help to protect their child, and they do nothing with it. After all the shit that I went through as a result of them giving me back to the abusers as a kid. And I told them that. I told them everything that I've been through. I was like, just don't fail me. Just give my wife some help, please. They failed me. All right, so this here is the police report. Now, we had used this for when we went to the small claims court, we sued the Bank of America to get them to undo this crap offer, because the evidence is pretty cut and dry. But as you can see, you can kind of see what the PC code numbers are, the crimes are. And when I tried to present this in the court, of course, Gregory C. Winters, I object, Your Honor, to them just looking through here. Well, all you got to do is hold it up to the light, and you can see it yourself, what crime she was. So I wrote them down, and that's the arrest. Hold on. Well, that's that case number 100-26698, right? Weston Marco, Officer Weston Marco was the arresting officer. So this is going to line up right here. Now, this arrest was... well, you heard the other one. Where's the date at right here on this damn thing? Oh, 4/2/2010. So, yeah. There's the arrest thing. I got the PC 1000 paperwork. I got the whole kit and the caboodle and everything. So I'm not just like pulling shit out of the air. I get it. There's a lot of disgruntled spouses that just gonna make up all kinds of nasty shit and poke fingers and sling mud and shit at each other. That's not what I'm here for. I'm gonna put forward all this stuff and then be like, why? Why should I have had to deal with this? And why is Napa County so determined to like block it? I mean, which is, I'm honestly, it's kind of obvious because this individual is out telling people what they should, could, and will not do with their child. Safety plans, removals, the whole kit and caboodle. You shall not. Then comes home and does this shit in front of my son when she did all that stuff in the past. And you heard when I read her declaration to the court that she said other people shouldn't be drinking in front of her biological son David, her first son. So a bit of a contradiction. One standard for her, one standard for everybody else. The hallmarks of or trademarks of a narcissist, right? So when I came to them and asked them for help, it should have been fair. So a parent going and asking for help, but it's just like when I was asking for help from legal aid, they would tell me we have a very limited scope. She was given help for the annulment that she had. Marvin Mace and her were allowed to. She came forward to the court and said that I forced her to marry me because she was pregnant with my kid. When I met her, like I said, she was screwing my friend. We hooked up on the sly, and then found out that she was pregnant with his kid. But I agreed to see. I was like, hey, I'll stay with you. I'll help. Maybe I'm a simp. Probably am. Sounds like it. But yeah. So I don't know how that would be the case that I could have been trying to force her to marry me. When I proposed to her on the way to San Diego in front of a bunch of people, I got pictures of it, presented to the court and everything. But Marvin Mace tried to lie. Now, when I went in there, I made it very clear to Robert Stamps, the commissioner, I understand that there's no statute of limitation on bigamy. However, from the research that I've done, it states that you have 4 years from the time that you were aware of the bigamy to file for an annulment. That time had passed since they clearly entered into this knowing everything from the start. She was his case manager. He said that on the record. So she would have known. They filed we call it confidential marriage, try to hide everything. And so that clock would have been ticking. If the 4 years is accurate, then that clock started ticking from the beginning because they entered into it frivolously together, and then they were back here in court working together again to try to lie, to impact the investigation into the conduct of Alexis Vossmeyer that I've requested and the director. I received a phone call back from Christine Briseno. Her attitude was completely different. Perturbed, I would say. That she said, well, I talked to them and they said that they determined that that's not their call. It has to go to another agency. But what they were trying to do is they were trying to keep all of this from going into a record because it has to go into the record. Once it would have went to Sonoma County, there's this like database or whatever, and that would have had to be entered into there. All this other stuff would have had to been entered into there, and they're like, So it sure feels like Napa County is going way out of their way to try to smudge this up and do whatever they got to do because, like I said, Robert Stamps, the last thing he told me is, hey, there is no statute of limitations on bigamy. And I was like, that's not what I said. I said statute of limitations from what I've... And that's like I say, hey, is there an attorney here that specializes in bigamy or anybody out there? Once you find out that bigamy... so if you know that bigamy's happened and you just keep on rolling with it, then you validate that marriage. So because they entered into it, they didn't file it in 4 years. So how did he approve their annulment with everything that was put in front of him? We caught Marvin Mace trying to lie about when he last saw his first wife that he married by the newspaper article. Jessica Lopez and I tried lying about the marriage thing. He tried lying about when they were having their little relationship and their sexual encounters. That was while she was employed, because that doesn't look good that somebody is that dishonest that they had a duty to protect the public, and yet she's screwing this dude and then ends up arrested with them going out and doing. That's not a good look. That shows that she's dishonest, and yet she comes into this court and lies her ass off and has Gregory Winter finagle this whole thing. Then they go over and they try to have Marvin Mace. How would Marvin Mace know what lies to try to tell to benefit her unless they've been in communication? So, You know, but I guess I have to order the transcripts and all that stuff. I'm gonna need them for a little thing with Gregory Winter, anyways, because that first day that we showed up in court, he made a demand to. I mean, not that day of the May the 5th, but the first day, I think it was January, that we showed up to court. He made a demand to me and to Robert Stamp, Commissioner Robert Stamps, at sidebar. And when that was facilitated, he flat out refused in writing. So it's more of the games, more of the how you say, the delay tactics and all those things that I could have swore from what I've read and how I translate it, but I'm not a professional. Why sanctions are put in place is for the side that's trying to be difficult or intentionally trying to slow down the process or make it expensive and costly and time consuming for everybody, and therefore imposing also on the court, who's got a big plate full, and they're trying to get everybody through there and give everybody a fair chance. But there's another thing. Somebody overheard Mr. Winter, Gregory C. Winter, talking about this case and about motions that were filed, which is an ethics violation. He's not supposed to be talking about a case to somebody who's not involved in that case, not party to that case. So this is the kind of shit I've had to deal with. And when I went to press forward on this, it was in 2021. I filed for divorce in 2022. Didn't see Gregory C. Winter till 2023. He tries to bark a demand and a threat at me and sanctions, and I will do this and prefer legal action. Trying to push me off an investigation, which seemed kind of funky. I was like, I don't take no orders from you, number one, and don't ever threaten me for trying to keep my son safe or prefer my constitutional rights as a parent. I asked him to expand. I gave him another chance. Like, hey, you want to expand on that? What you're trying to say? And he neglected to do so. So I took it to this California State Bar. And whenever I go try to like reach out to, when I went to the admin, when he pushed me with those papers, he had them papers all rolled up, and I had my hands full, and he jams them into my ribs, and the papers go flying all over the floor. Didn't realize there was a bunch. There's witnesses right there. I mean, I don't know what he thought, that he was going to be able to get away with that and nobody was going to say anything, or that I wasn't going to stay there and get those people's contact information. So I had to go up to admin and file about that. So it's chaotic, but I still got more stuff to show you. So I'm not here to just press my agenda or I'm here to speak the truth, and it's crazy because they're angry for me speaking the truth. Now I totally get it. If I was here bullshitting and lying and just smearing, I get it. But I'm not the one that's lying. So keep in mind that little sign I showed y'all at the very first, before you step on the first step or the courthouse. It says truth, right?